Deep Dive with David Stendhal, where we trade without ego, no emotion, no greed, and no opinion. Before we begin tonight's video blog, please read over our trading disclaimer and remember to trade smart and accept the reality that trading futures is risky. This presentation does not provide buy-sell recommendations, and our information is strictly provided for educational purposes only. As always, trade at your own risk and analysis. Hey, today is December 7th, 2017, and I thought I'd take a look at natural gas given the fact that it had a nice down move today. The long ETF is UNG, so keep that in mind. We're obviously talking about natural gas on the short side. You see that the short, intermediate, and long term are all pointing to the downside. The technical rating is still a little bit flat, and there's a little bit ambiguity going along with that particular market, but the trends are most certainly to the downside. So let's first take a look at the market and get a feel for what has been taking place. We've had this down surge that has really begun as of the 29th. We had the 30th where the market really started to rocket to the downside. That's when our systems, this day, the 30th, is when our systems went short. And ever since then, with one day in between, the market has really been biased to the downside. It is not significantly oversold as of right now. It is oversold, but it's not significantly oversold. And the bias to the market when you look at the seasonals is still pointed to the downside. So the fact that we broke through this support level, there's two of them here, but this is the more significant area. We would expect that the market might still consider to meander to the downside. I think that there's reason for a bounce in the market given today's action, bounce to the upside obviously, but still nonetheless the systems are still short the market and enjoying the potential the move that we've actually been having here. So let's first take a look at what's been taking place here. Here's a system. It is a 90-minute bar system. That's kind of significant because it's based on 90-minute bars. It's been short, and it's been short since the 30th of November. So it's got a nice little profit out there on a per contract basis. When we take a look at the seasonal tendencies to the market, you can see that the market typically peaks around this time and sells off. A lot of people take a look at the seasonal charts, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time here, that over the past few years, the seasonal tendencies of natural gas actually has changed. This is a 5-year seasonal chart. If we take a look at the 10-year seasonal charts, the bias is still to the downside. It's important that if you're going to look at seasonal charts, look at seasonal charts that are updated on a regular basis. We update our charts every single day, therefore we're able to keep things up to date. There are seasonal charts out there for natural gas that show a completely different bias to the market, and people were saying and giving me a little bit of crap, the fact that our systems were short, that they were basically saying that the seasonal charts, I'm putting that in air quotes, point in a totally different direction. But the reality is that if you have out of date seasonal charts, those are not being maintained, you're going to have ambiguous, incorrect information at your disposal. So when you look at the seasonal charts and you see that the market typically peaks with real up-to-date charts, those that are up-to-date on a daily basis like ours are, you can see that we updated this as of the 6th. Every day we update this. It's always going to be one day off, but you can see that the market is biased to the downside. People were saying that how could you be looking at the seasonal charts and coming up with the conclusion that we are coming up with? Well, the reality is that if you look at up-to-date information, you have a different perspective on things. So if we look at the seasonal projection for the market, it's still biased to the downside into mid-December. So if you look at your seasonal charts, any of those free charts that you might look up on the internet, you might get a totally different perspective. But the reality is that the systems are short. The systems still have a seasonal bias to the downside until mid-December. Now, with the volatility that we're seeing, there's going to be some type of a bounce here, no doubt, but at least the systems are taking advantage of this condition. If we look at a longer term chart, just a trend-oriented type chart, you can see that the market is still and has been biased for the last, the last 3 years, has been biased to the downside. So therefore, if you're going to trade one way or the other, you're going to be looking at things more on the short side than you are on the long side. Let's take a look at the tendencies here. This for the bear markets, for all the different markets, and this only after the last 3 years. So obviously it's a small snapshot of time, but 62.6% of the time, you're going to have a bearish bias to the market, and that's what's going on with natural gas. So the fact is, and I guess the only reason I'm harping on this is that, one, we had a breakdown from a particular resistance level, this support level, and now it's resistance to where it is right now, but it broke down from this support level. The bias on the moving averages to the downside, as I pointed out with the deep dive, we have the market not, I mean, it's in oversold conditions right now, but it's not significantly oversold, so there's still a little more downside potential here, and it won't be until mid-December that natural gas will really start to, at least from a seasonal perspective, start to have a bit of a bounce to the market itself. So I guess the emphasis for this deep dive is, if you're going to look at seasonal charts and you're going to look at things from the perspective of where the market actually might be headed, please look at those charts that are more up to date and not completely out of date. One gentleman in particular was giving me a hard time with the seasonal charts, and basically showing a completely out of date seasonal chart for natural gas that was showing a very, very different perspective on the market. And unfortunately, he was showing something from it had been updated in 10 years, and he was looking at a chart that was very much out of date. So the point is, the whole emphasis that we always work from when it comes to our seasonal charts is those that will, at least for the most part, tell us the direction of the market and be able to allow us to increase and decrease position size when it comes to our individual systems. So in other words, if the seasonal charts are moving in our direction and they are buoyed by what the systems are actually doing, we may trade more contracts. If there is an opposite perspective where the seasonal charts are more bullish but our systems are more bearish, we would trade fewer contracts. So we actually use the seasonal charts as a seasonal, or excuse me, as a bias to the market when it comes to our aggressiveness in the number of contracts that we trade. So therefore, we use our seasonal charts in a different perspective, and we're not looking at it from buy on this date to sell on this date when it comes to the seasonal charts. But nonetheless, you have to look at seasonal charts that are up to date, and you'll see from our perspective that we update ours on a daily basis. So therefore, our stuff is going to be a lot more up to date than some of the garbage charts that are actually out there on the internet that are quote-unquote free and not being maintained. So I'll get off my soapbox and just simply point out that we're short. We're going to be short for a period of time, and the fact is that until the trend changes, until the seasonal tendencies of the market start to change, we'll probably be short the market, but we are anticipating, given the fact that the market was down as much as it was today, some type of a little bit of a bounce, but the zigzag bounciness to the market is still going to work to our favor. So we'll see how things kind of work out from there. We'll take a look at another market tomorrow, and we'll go from there. Thanks very much for watching. Bye-bye.